Start button, then I'll run off and get the hat.
Presenting Benny Goodman and his music.
All right, everybody, I'll be right back. I'll be right back with my hair covered up.
Benny Goodman, ladies and gentlemen, the man with the torrid clarinet.
That is correct, Benny Goodman, ladies and gentlemen.
Purveys assorted rhythms, all danceable, in the urban room of the Congress Hotel in Chicago. And first of all, one of Irving Berlin's greatest hits, Blue Skies.
Is it back on? I can't tell if I'm back on. Am I streaming? I appear to be. Yes. There we are then. I have to restart this other app. Welcome along, everybody. Hey, Jim. Hey, Cindy. Hey, Timothy. What did I do today? What do you think I did today? I ate. Actually, I just ate. But I just ate some incredible turkey, some sweet potatoes with the marshmallow topping that makes that nice noise when you hit it with the fork. Celebrated Union victories. Hey, Heather. Hey, Christine. Hey, everybody. Mashed potato day indeed, Megan. Marie. Hey, everybody. Welcome along. It is shopping in Chicago time. It's Thanksgiving night. That's kind of a tradition around here. I also got some work done on the Graceland Volume 2 book today. Interesting research. Not band rehearsal. Okay, Kathleen. Missed the euphoniums. Hey, Joanne. Hey, Octavio. Hey, Sherlock. Hey, Karen. Hey, Tom. Hey, Georgia. Hey, everybody. I still got a pumpkin cheesecake in front of me. That I'll save it for later. Jenna has made some incredible food today.
Singing with all my heart.
Hey, everybody, welcome along. Gobble gobble right back at you, Susan. Just booked a New York ticket for a couple of weeks from now. I'm going to go see the Bill and Ted Waiting for Godot. I bought the tickets a long time ago, and I'm guessing that for some reason on December 9th, a Tuesday, prices for hotels in New York just skyrocket. A couple of days after that, they're fine. But for some reason, Tuesday the 9th, it's like places that I would normally pay $150 for going for $1,200. Horror story. Finally found a place out in Brooklyn that didn't get the memo. Hey, Marita. Happy Thanksgiving to you, Mackenzie. Without a while, wherefore? All I'll ever care for with all my heart. Thanks, Mom. Hey, Debbie. I'm going to paste this a few times, but hey, it's almost Black Friday. Here's something for you all to shop for in the comments. The Coyote calendars are out. I love you. All my heart. Tryptophan kicking in. Yeah, Gene. Excellent. Proceeds from the calendar go to the Adam Remodels His Bathroom Fund. Cool Chicago theme in the bathroom, though. Hey, Katie.
Benny Goodman goes away
Hey, Heather.
and gets a lot of rhythm out of Walk, Jenny Walk. Benny Goodman and his orchestra.
Hey, Rin. Evening, everybody. Welcome along. Bit of a smaller group than normal, but you know that's how it is when we do shopping on a holiday tour. Happy that the proud have arrived. But oh, and speaking of things arriving, she's gone to fetch me a refreshment. She's so thoughtful that way. Want to say hi? Okay. Jenna does not wish to say hi, but brought me this. What is this called? A paper airplane? A paper plane. Fancy Thanksgiving cocktail. You guys ever see me using having a cocktail with a garnish on it on these shows? I'm dressed down, but really is an ideal Thanksgiving cocktail. It's delicious. Hey Linda, hey Eileen, hey everybody. Rin, yeah, it's pretty tasty. The paper plane. What all is in this, Jenna? Okay, it's this fancy thing. It's got Amaro Nonino and some Aperol.
And then lemon juice, fresh infused, and
Fresh lemon juice and bourbon.
equal parts all four.
Equal parts all four. That makes it easy. Hey Norma. Hey Laura. 5 pies for dessert. That's a lot of pies. Along with cookies and a cheesecake. Gobble gobble Marine. Welcome along, everybody. It is Thanksgiving night. Elaine, we saw Wicked 2 about a week ago. I had a good time, but I have notes. Pie, pound cake, and a cheesecake.
When they played by Benny Goodman. And now another one just in the same vein. Rosetta.
What? Hey, John. Will we do another trivia night? Good question. I don't know. You guys weren't that good at trivia. Oh yeah, Kathy. It is Shawl's night around here. Where are you? Back home or traveling? I'm in Jenna's house. Hey, Jen. Hey, Marie. Hey, Jeff. Hey, everybody. Well, Benny Goodman, finish up this number, then we are going to start. Hey, Susan. Welcome along. It'd be great at trivia if the questions were easier. Well, sure. Well, so I looked up. Those of you who were on the morning mini tour yesterday, we saw the Brown Christie grave. Thought I needed to look some people up in there. Turns out, yeah, Dr. Sanger Brown not only examined Leopold Loeb, but wrote a book called Sex Worship, which puts forth the proposition that often when you see common symbols that are cylindrical or oval shaped, that's sex symbolism. Surprise. There was a time when I guess that must have shocked people. Alright, Benny Goodman wrapping that tune up. That means it is time for me to get started properly around here. So, alright, here we go. And welcome along, everybody. Hey, I'm a little bit dressed down today. It's a holiday. I've been lounging around when not working on side dishes, etc. But all right, welcome along, everybody. I'm Adam Seltzer from Mysterious Chicago Tours. I've been a tour guide and historian here in Chicago for over 20 years now, author of several books, including Mysterious Chicago, the book. Just Kill Me, a novel about a ghost tour guide who makes places more haunted by killing people at them. Smart Alex Guide to American History, H.H. Holmes' The True History, Flickering Empire, How Chicago Invented the U.S. Film Industry, Murder Maps USA, Graceland Cemetery, Chicago Stories, Symbols, and Secrets. Now, tonight, though, we are going to be talking about shopping. It's going to become a tradition. Shopping history in Chicago, right before Black Friday, one of the bigger shopping days of the year. We've already had the Macy's Day Parade. Did anybody watch the Macy's Day Parade? I never watched the Macy's Day Parade. I think if anything goes down, I'll catch a clip later on. But all right. And then when you watch you can find like the Macy's Day Parades from the 80s and stuff on TV, but the commercials are more fun than the actual parade most of the time. But what we're going to talk about today is shopping history in Chicago. Chicago has always been known as a shopping town, going back to quite a ways back when we were kind of on the cutting edge of innovation when it came to department stores. So I'm going to go all the way back to the early days of Chicago. In the early days of Chicago, you didn't really have a whole lot of shopping options. You lived around here. If you lived at Fort Dearborn, what you could buy from about one guy. And that, well, we'll show you a little bit of a visual where this is all now. 200 years ago, that looked like a couple of buildings in a prairie, and now it's this magnificent city. The Wrigley Building, the Chicago Tribune Building. The Fidelity Building, too. We won't bother ourselves with that. But about the only guy you could buy from was the sutler of the fort, the guy who had a contract to provide goods and services to people inside of the fort. That was a guy by the name of John Kinsey, who a whole generation of Chicagoans were taught that was the founder of Chicago. He wasn't exactly. He was one of the first non-native settlers. Now, this is not, in fact, a picture of John Kinsey. There is not really a proper portrait of him that was made during his lifetime. But a lot of people said that he resembled this one British politician. How the hell anybody know what that guy looked like? I have no idea. But that was kind of what you had for shopping in Chicago. But eventually, over around here, right at Wolf Point, they built the Sauganash Hotel, which looked like this. That's H.O. Stone, the mortgage broker, riding up to the Sauganash Hotel / apothecary shop run by Philo Carpenter. So this over on the left was your first Chicago drugstore. Moving up a little bit. So as the city began to grow, it started laying out roads. They got rid of this Elephant Bend trunk. But for that, they brought in a guy by the name of Orsemus Morrison, who had worked on the Erie Canal. Now, after working on the Erie Canal, he had the experience necessary to get rid of this sandbar over here and have the river start joining the lake right about at Grand Avenue like it does now. At the time, it took like this right-hand turn, went south a few blocks, then joined the lake at Madison. But once we had gotten that out of the way, it was time to start growing the city, really. Now, at the time in the 1850s, your main source of retail in Chicago was on Lake Street. This one that now goes underneath the L tracks and really isn't very much for retail at all anymore. But you had a couple of our early department stores out here, including this whole block that would have looked like this. This is L.D. Olmsted & Co. That's one of our earlier department stores, who keep constantly on hand one of the largest and most desirable stocks of dry goods to be found west of the city of New York. Fancy and staple dry goods. Cash for the fancy goods, fash for the staple dry goods. But of course, there's also T.B. Carter, whose ad screamed, "Shawls! Shawls!" among the many desirable goods now offered by T.B. Carter, 118 Lake Street. Large and choice lot of shawls, nearly every style and kind. There were shawls of every style and kind. How many Music Man references can I work into just reading these ads? They've got morning shawls of various styles and prices, opera shawls, something new and desirable, crepe and cashmere scarves of various styles. Wow. Waterton Empire State and Scotch long and square shawls. Here's L.D. Olmsted & Co. had to get it on this too with shawls! Shawls! Brooch mantle shawls, Bay State shawls. We have in all the new colors, brown, drab, tan. That's okay. Yeah. Do you think they had beige or taupe? Those all sound like basically the same color of shawl to me. But there's also, this is how they had to advertise fans at the time, like the kind you would use to fan yourself. To raise the wind. There are various ways of doing this. There's a fart joke in here someplace. But a good one during the 94ish sort of weather hereabouts from the 13th to the 15th of June is to go to T.B. Carter's, 118 Lake Street, and buy a 3-cent palm leaf fan and commence vibrating it to and fro. A very respectable breeze can be got up in this way on short no ice. It is not everybody who keeps these 3-cent fans. Being in Troy, New York last year in some of the meltingest kind of weather, we tried to get one and couldn't. This is kind of how advertising works. You create a need. You create fear that somebody's not going to have something that they need. In this case, what if it's meltingest weather like we've had these past few weeks and we can't get a 3-cent fan? We could get a very respectable breeze up if we had a 3-cent fan, but what if we didn't have one? Good thing T.B. Carter has them. Now, T.B. Carter is presently hanging out here at Graceland Cemetery in this grave. Where he is along with one of the mayors of Chicago. But among other retail establishments that were operating at the time, right where Dick Blick Art Materials is now on State, was Mrs. Carberry's shop. This is the first one known in Chicago to have been operated by a woman. It was a ladies' trimming and fancy store, State and Monroe. Linings, facings, fancy and plain buttons, braids, velvet ribbons, needles, all sorts and sizes. What if you only sold one size of needle? Not a whole lot is really known about Mrs. Carberry. Well, we also have, going through the ads from back then, we have this thing for invisible ventilating heads of hair, which notes that you can have lingerie made out of your dead friend's hair. But at the time, dry goods stores generally looked about like this. It was a couple of rows of things. You couldn't look at the merchandise yourself. You had to ask to see it. It was all behind the counter. Down in the back, there would be a whiskey barrel where everybody would hang around. But meanwhile, off in New York, off around the edge of the Erie Canal, was a young man named Potter Palmer. Now, Potter Palmer was working in Lockport, New York, right around where the Erie Canal began. Might have even run into Orsemus Morrison at one point or another. But while he was working there, somebody put in an order for all this stone that was going to this new city called Chicago. Chicago was at the time growing about like this. He thought, well, that seems like an interesting place. Must be pretty big and on the move as they're ordering that much stone for a city hall. So he'd been working as a merchant and just kind of looking for an opportunity. So he came out here to Chicago to see how the city was growing, and took a room at the Sherman Hotel, as seen right here. Then went to visit George High, who is now also at Graceland Cemetery, and bought a little plot of land in Chicago, a little bit of real estate, where he decided to open his first dry goods store. So, to learn the trade of the dry goods store, he went out to New York and checked out the marble palace of A.T. Stewart, pictured here. A.T. Stewart was the merchant king of New York. Eventually, we could call him like the Marshall Field of New York, though really it's more to say Marshall Field was the A.T. Stewart of Chicago. And they had things like a whole sewing room, where people were working just round the clock. And this got him started in his place on Lake Street. But then in 1857, his area and the whole area nearby on Lake was just devastated when, first, for one thing, the Panic of 1857 hit things hard. Every now and then we have these recessions and depressions. The Panic of 1857 was a pretty bad one. Still impacts my career to this day, because the people who had bought up some land where Rose Hill Cemetery is now plan to use it for housing. But then after the Panic of 1857, nobody was buying new housing, so they thought they would use it as a cemetery instead. It's directly every time I do a tour at Rose Hill Cemetery, it's because of the Panic of 1857. Now, William Ross here, you can see, was having a panic sale, taking advantage of the Panic of 1857, for the store is crowded from morning till night. Everybody gets a bargain. They have a stock of goods at every description and than any of the other retail stores. Now, by this time in Chicago, there was like one merchant per every 92 people. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of retail in the city. But after the panic sale, there was also some fire sales, because there was a massive fire. There was a point where if you said the Great Chicago Fire, you meant the one in 1857, not the one in 1871. The Panic of 1857 hit retailers hard enough. A lot of it burned up on Lake Street. But then, with all of the merchants fleeing after the big fire, Potter Palmer decided it was time to move into a bigger store. So here's Potter Palmer at the ripe old age of 35. You look at this. Dude in this picture is 10 years younger than I am right now. But ended up opening a new place on Lake Street. So here's 1858, he opened up his shop. It got written up over here, this first-class dry goods house by P. Palmer, one of our best-known and most widely known merchants, who removes from his old stand on the south side of Lake Street 1 block west, carrying with him new quarters, a business reputation and standing in itself a fortune to any house. Now, he had been following the advances in sociology. People like Elizabeth Cady Stanton weren't having a whole lot of luck convincing women they should be agitating for the right to vote, but they were helping to convince people that they should control the purse strings. Like, listen, you're the one who has to make dinner. If you need a stove, go out and buy a stove. So he kind of realized women were starting to shop more for leisure. You were seeing a lot more women hanging around dry goods stores, so he decided that he would cater Potter Palmer's store to women. No whiskey barrel in the back, and also, this is an 1861. This one advertisement is really a major bit of retail history. The notice to country customers. I will send by express to customers in any part of the country promptly patterns and different styles of dress goods, silk shawls, and embroidery. But the major thing here is that he also says that you can return any of these. Having an open return policy was something that people thought was going to bankrupt him. It ended up being a cornerstone of retail for a long time. So here's Field at the age of 24, already looking older than I am now. This is Marshall Field. Marshall Field came into the Potter Palmer organization and was just living as thriftily as humanly possible until eventually he was able to start up his own store using money from the McCormick family, which does not speak well of him. But eventually, Farwell Field & Co., Cooley Farwell & Co., had their premises here on Lake Street. But then Potter Palmer decided it was time to sell out. His doctor told him that he needed to knock things off, so he decided to sell everything over to this Marshall Field kid. But meanwhile, he had made an absolute fortune. Partly because when the Civil War got started, about a year before, he saw the writing on the wall and bought all the cotton that he could. Then he sold it all right before the Civil War ended, leaving Marshall Field like having bought him out and thinking, oh man, what have I gotten myself into now? But meanwhile, Potter Palmer had gone off on vacation to Paris, where the effects of Haussmannization were taking place. It was a period in late 19th century, mid-19th century Paris, where they were transforming the city from a medieval jumble of streets into a more modern city. And he had kind of figured out, Lake Street goes right alongside the smelly river. It's not the best place. Something else is going to emerge to be the retail center of Chicago. He kind of figured it was eventually going to be State Street, going away from the river. So he bought up, pretty much everybody started moving. Marshall Field built his new place on State Street over here. Eventually, this gorgeous marble palace. Potter Palmer built his new hotel, the Powerhouse, over on State Street. So by 1866, Field was selling not just clothing, but Yankee notions, as seen here. Umbrellas, sun umbrellas, and small wares. But then, right as he was really getting going, 1871, the Great Chicago Fire hit. This left everybody in kind of a mess, but everybody rebuilt their stores as quickly as they could. This is W.D. Kerfoot's place, where he put up the sign saying, all gone but wife, children, and energy. So this is how Marshall Fields looked right after the Great Chicago Fire. It's just a pole in the ground. But he still got a sign up saying, cash boys and work girls will be paid what is due them, Monday, 9 a.m., October 16th, that's barely a week after the fire, at Calumet Avenue, Field, Leader & Co. So he was still managing to pay his employees even when the building was gone, which might sound like a very noble thing, except he was paying the cash boys and work girls like next to nothing. Marshall Field was a very cold and unfriendly man, known for saying that the customer is always right. That may have been the origin of the phrase. But he was also prone to saying things like, if my employees only saved 10 cents a week in a couple of weeks, and in no time, that's thousands of dollars. It's like, 10 cents a week is $5.20 a year, Marshall. It takes a long time to get up to the 2,000. I don't know, he makes me mad when I talk about Marshall Field. But the inside of it was a very stunning place for people. Look at this enormous line of jewelry counters here. But really their main place was the warehouse. The retail store was never really that much of a money maker for Field. They made most of their money in wholesale business. And their wholesale showroom would eventually be the Merchandise Mart. But it used to be a place right over here where the Sears Tower parking garage is now. Used to look like this, a Henry Hobson Richardson design. Henry Hobson Richardson also designed things like the Glessner House down on Prairie Avenue. Marshall Field had a general manager in those early days. We'll take a look at the building that came up after the fire. Katie, exactly. Yeah, it's like saying don't buy avocado toast and you can buy it, and soon you'll be able to buy a house. Sure. Like, that homeless guy that you gave $1 to is just going to buy booze with. It's like, no, I thought he was going to go buy a $1 house. But really, a lot of the big innovations that we credit the Marshall Fields department store with were really the brainchild of Harry Selfridge. One time I took a tour of Macy's, which is where the Marshall Fields is now, and they were telling us, and one day Marshall Fields saw people drinking tea and a light bulb went off above his head. Like, that never happened. No light bulb ever went off above that old man's head, and he was an old man when he was 24. All of his good ideas were really his general manager, Harry Selfridge's ideas, the dynamic young man. He had to drag Marshall kicking and screaming into these things. But he expanded things like the lace shop, and started dragging the company into the late 19th century with the addition of telephones and the telephone operators known as the Hello Girls. Well, also we can still see some of the innovations here, like having a restaurant inside of the department store, which is still the Walnut Room today, up on the view from the 7th floor. Here is 1959, the tree in the Walnut Room going all the way up about 3 stories high. And the Walnut Room much more recently. But Selfridge also really pushed to expand advertising. He was in charge of the retail store, which had previously not been a moneymaker. He innovated things like having really, really artistic shop windows that drew people in around Christmas time, especially. And also, lots more advertising, including things like this one from 1903 saying there are only 27 shopping days until Christmas. It's like visceral stress looking at ads like this. 1905, down to only 25 shopping days. Women's broad black cloth coats, 4 models, $20. That's the equivalent of about a $600 coat right now. See what else they had for sale. Back in 1903, they had moleskin sets for $47.50. That's in the range of over $1,000 now. Alaska seal coats, $195. This is a guy who paid his employees. Like, this is 2 years' salary for a coat for the Cash Boys. But eventually, Harry Selfridge went up to Marshall Field and said, listen, I've completely renovated your business. I've completely brought you into the century. I've made you a fortune. I want to be a partner in this field. I want it to be Marshall Field and Selfridge. Otherwise, I'm going to go off and start my own business. And Marshall said, okay, goodbye. And Harry said, I'll stay around until you can hire my replacement. And Field said, no, you can leave tomorrow if you feel like it. So he did. He started up what would eventually become the Selfridge store, had hired Louis Sullivan to design for him what is now sometimes called the Goth Target here at State and Madison. Now, State and Madison was a particularly bustling center at the time. See, it looked about like this. But within about a year, he had sold it out to Carson Pirie and Scott, which was owned at the time by a guy named Andrew McLeish, whose son, Archibald McLeish, would win 3 Pulitzer Prizes for poetry, and whose sister-in-law kicked Ginevra King out of boarding school. This is all stuff coming up in the Graceland book, Volume 2. So in just about a year, he sold the business at a profit, moved to London to start Selfridge's, which became a huge thing over there. But moving a little bit further down State Street, now, both Selfridge's and Marshall Field were going for what they called the carriage trade, rich people. But just down the road, a little further down State, was a place called The Fair, which looked very fancy on the inside, but the stuff in there was just generally a whole lot cheaper. This is how it looked in the 1870s. By 1880, it expanded to look like this. And by 1897, it looked like this. It looked, on the outside, almost identical to Marshall Field's. On the inside, we can see what they were selling here. The largest and grandest store in the world, now rapidly being pushed to completion. Boys' suits for $1.50. It's, $30-$40 today. Ladies' suits, $5.95. $150, $200. Was still a lot cheaper than what you were getting at Marshall Field. The inside looked about like this. Still looked very fancy. It's not like you're not going to walk into a Big Lots and mistake it for a Target nowadays. But the Lehman family who owned it, this was their original mausoleum at Forest Home Cemetery that they never actually used. It's just sitting there now with these big lion statues. It is, recently I saw that it was on sale. They were trying to sell the thing for a couple $100,000, which for a mausoleum this size is an absolute bargain. Look at those lions with their mean and hungry look. But they never used it because they built themselves another mausoleum over here at Graceland. There's one that looks like the White House. Let's cover some other great Chicago retail establishments. We still talk about the Boston store now and then because you can still see a sign for it on State Street, but it's been gone for a long time. But that was over across the street from the eventual Carson Pirie Scott. Ooh, this State and Madison. There's a postcard showing the Boston store. An exterior of the Boston store circa 1902, but also had a grill on the inside, a restaurant. Still going as of 1935. See some of these ads here. Gifts for her. $1 makeup box for only 89 cents. $42 perfume for only $19.95. That's like 1935 price is like $500 perfume right now. But one of my other favorites to mention, especially while we're celebrating Union victories for Thanksgiving, as Lincoln intended, is a frantic appeal to the citizens of Chicago. Why will you buy clothing of any other house when you can get better styles and finer goods at lower prices at Western Hall, 72 Randolph Street? Now, Western Hall is not a company that is particularly well remembered, but which had delightful advertising. Friends and fellow citizens, hear me for my cause. You have been paying too much for clothing. Eventually, they had this whole guy, the poet of Western Hall, who would write all these long-winded poems about going to Western Hall, sometimes known as the Bard of Western Hall, who could evidently leave footprints in the sand of time in some other branch of literature. But since we are celebrating Union victories, I will point out what attracted me to Western Hall in the first place is running across this ad of theirs in the Chicago Times in 1865, right after Richmond was taken back from the Confederates. Here's how they celebrated this Union victory with this ad: Richmond has fallen, and so have prices at Western Hall Clothing House. I am feeling this paper plane. Yes. Now, all over the UK, the city centers are generally pretty pedestrian-based. A lot of them have these pedestrian, outdoor mall, really. Like, Leeds is, the biggest mall I have ever been in. It's got all of the mall shops. It doesn't have cars going around. It's all pedestrian. Except, besides the mall shops, there's also pubs and the occasional graveyard. I mean, I'm a child of 80s and 90s mall culture in the United States, but downtown Leeds is the best mall I have ever been in. So, in an effort to emulate that style, in the late 1970s, they turned State Street here in Chicago into a mall itself. They closed it to regular traffic, but unfortunately they still had buses going through, so the fumes were pretty obnoxious. This was kind of a grand design at the time, closing it down to regular cars and just turning State Street into a mall. It is basically a mall. Here's how it looked under construction, when they were gradually putting in mall-style furniture. The old State and Lake Theater was still there. Over on the left, you can see what's going on in the Chicago Theater, showing Blackula. All right. Well, this didn't last for too long. It wasn't great for traffic. It was kind of unconvincing to people. The fact that they still had buses going through there so you couldn't just walk down the street meant it didn't really change all that much. We'll also briefly cover here, where do these guys end up? Well, here's Potter Palmer. And here's Marshall Field. Now, I did intend to film the Marshall Field's windows yesterday, but I couldn't get close to it. The traffic was so bad. So, we'll hit them and check them out for a morning mini tour sometime over the holiday season. But for now, here is some video from 2020. The windows were having really artistic windows were a big innovation that Selfridge really pushed. The year Grogu was first popular. Alright, this one ran kind of quick tonight, I must admit. Apologize for that. I blame the cocktail. Well, alright, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me. We're going to go... I did not look good enough for this. So, we're just going to keep it right here. And we will go to the pre-show, post-show hangout a little bit early tonight. I think everybody else is probably on that same kind of tryptophan high that I am, so.
And now Benny Goodman's arrangement
all right.
of The Bugle Call Rang.
What are they doing with that reindeer who couldn't fly or something? Like tiptoe or mistletoe or some kind of reindeer. Like half of it rhymed, half of it didn't. The meter was all off. Ugh, dark times. Strange days indeed. Yeah, right after a Thanksgiving dinner that couldn't be beat is not the time to do this. That does appear to be a little green coyote. Thank you, Jen. Normally I have my Thanksgiving meal like noon, 1 o'clock. We had it at 7 today. Yes, I will paste that link again. The Coyote calendar is out. Just pasted the link in the comments. Yeah, thank you, Phoenix. Take it sleazy. Oh yeah, watch out for the snow coming in tomorrow. Late tomorrow night, apparently. Also, I'll be on WCPT tomorrow, 8:20 a.m. with Patty from 5 to 7. Commenting on perhaps the batshit even by his standards press conference today. Well, we used to do a thing on Patty's show on WGN. She usually did on Thanksgiving. We had Thanksgiving leftovers night, where she'd rotate a whole group of us in and out of the studio. We'd all bring our Thanksgiving leftovers. One year, I think that was the year that I brought Charles Dickens's punch recipe and got Patty's mom really drunk.
That was the Bugle Call Rag, Benny Goodman's own arrangement. Now, the popular tune, Thanks a Million.
It was Tiptoe the Reindeer. And they're reusing some of it behind Santa's sleigh float today. I have my own song stuck in my head, Heavy Metal Vomit Christmas Party. Can we have a heavy metal vomit Christmas party, please? No one pukes, it doesn't seem like Christmas time to me. Heedless of the wind and weather, shouting out no life till leather. Get a mosh pit going all around the Christmas tree. Yeah, Tiptoe the Reindeer was a big display at Marshall Fields a couple of years running. They had this whole poem about Tiptoe the Reindeer, that the meter was off, the rhyme scheme was off. It was a sad state of affairs. Remember to be yourself, Bob. Unless you're Newt Gingrich, in which case, be somebody else. Alright, this was rather a short one tonight. But I have a cheesecake to attend to. I hope you all don't mind. So thank you very much. I'm Adam from Mysterious Chicago Tours. I will see you all tomorrow for Find a Grave Friday, when I should have recovered. Got a pretty good one in mind tomorrow. We'll see how things go. But all right, everybody. Thank you for joining me. I'm Adam from Mysterious Chicago Tours, telling you all to order your Coyote calendar today. Help to contribute to the Adams Bathroom Fund. And until then, stay safe, stay strong, and stay